Are you ready for the third letter of the Hebrew alphabet? It's the letter Gimel. Let's dive in. Shalom, welcome to Rob on the Rock. Here we are at Scribe School, episode number 3, looking at the third letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and that's the letter Gimel. G, it makes a G sound, like our letter G, and that's what it looks like. It's only 2 strokes, similar to that stroke of the Aleph. You start up to the left, kind of a steep slant down to the right, and then a little leg sticking out. It's kind of like if you imagine a real narrow X without that upper part on it. Another way to think of it is an upside down letter Y. It's another easy shape that we already know from English that can help us. So that's the letter Gimel. If we want to make a giant Gimel, it would look like this. So we want to practice your letter Gimel. You can make little Gimels like this. You can make a little Gimel tree. Or make medium Gimels. I'm using green for Gimel. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at some Gimels in those same manuscripts that we've looked at. And one is from the late 2nd century BC. It was called the Great Isaiah Scroll. We're going to look at a couple words from Isaiah chapter 2, the word for hills and the word for nations, goyim. We'll see that. But before we do that, let's just do a quick review of what we've learned so far then. We know, I'll go down beyond the lined paper. We've got our letter Aleph. Remember to make that connected. A letter Bet. And the letter Gimel. I think it's helpful to practice writing those letters in different sizes so that we're fine-tuning that muscle memory that we need to develop. Aleph, Bet, Gimel. And you can just write it over and over again. Change colors if you want. You can write it backwards. Gimel, Bet, Aleph. Just to switch it up so you're really reinforcing that tree that you've planted, the little neural pathways in your brain and in your nervous system that are remembering this information. Bet, Aleph, Gimel. You can do it that way. So you can change the letters around, or you can do series like, Aleph, 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 Bet, Bet, Bet. Oops. Gimel, 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 and so on and so forth. And what we're going for is visual recognition. We want to see it and know what it is. We want to be able to write it, or that is create it or produce it from memory. Let's do one more each of the big. We'll do a big Aleph, a big Bet, and a big Gimel. There you go. Aleph, Bet, Gimel. These are all the same height. Oops, can't see that probably. It's too far off the screen. Aleph, Bet, Gimel. So if I had this imaginary dotted line here, these are parallel lines. You kind of see, well, I'm not doing a super good job of that, but if you can imagine these dotted lines, that's the help that the college ruled paper style gives you is that opportunity to really practice having those letters take up the same amount of space. Not all the letters will do that, but these do. Aleph, Bet, and Gimel. So you want to know the name of them, you want to know what they look like, and you want to be able to reproduce them. And it just takes practice. And pretty soon that becomes second nature. It becomes so familiar, it's part of you. And that's what a big part of learning is. Any new skill is that repetition. So now we're going to look at those manuscripts to recognize the letter Gimel. So first, let's go all the way back to our Dead Sea Scrolls passage here. This is from Isaiah chapter 2, where it says the house of the Lord, the mountain of the house of the Lord will be lifted up. It says, Venisa, lift up, Migevaot. And so let me move this so where you can see it here. This is the letter Mem, which we'll learn down the road. This is our Gimel right here. Gimel, Bet, Ayin, Vav, Tav. Now, Gevaot, the two we've learned here are back to back. Gimel and Bet. Can you see those? Can you see the Gimel right here and the Bet? If we go back to our little drawing pad here, we can put those, let's see if I can copy it underneath here. So we have, I'll change my color to black ink here. So we have the Mem. I'm not going to duplicate the Mem, but the Gimel, it kind of does that. I'm making it a little bigger. Can you see that? Let me do it again. That's our Gimel there. And then remember the Bet from this scribe has that kind of hook up like that, and maybe a little bit of a foot. So that's the Dead Sea Scrolls style of Gamma, just basically the same. We learned their style for the Aleph also, just like that. We're learning their style for the Gamma, or the Gimel, just because it's simple and it's easy for us to remember. And it's recognizable with minimal strokes. So this block script that I'm teaching you is really a minimalist approach. It would be different if we had a proper nib on a calligraphy pen. We would do something different. Continuing, so there's our first Gimel, and then also from one of these first passages here in Isaiah chapter 2, it says V'naharu. Now this is Alohi, which is an Aramaic term. Hebrew, it says Alav. And they will stream to it Kol HaGoyim. Kol HaGoyim. Now, this is a little bit strange because it strays from the spelling that we see in the Masoretic text. And some scholars have suggested this is a deliberate style of spelling, but we're not getting into spelling right now. But if you see this here, that's our Gimel. So it says Kol, Kaf, Vav, Lamed. Kol, if you don't know those yet, which maybe you haven't, don't worry about it. Ha, Goyim. Hey, Gimel, Vav, Aleph, Yod, Mem. So it's thought by some top scholars that the reason that the spelling variation is present in a lot of the Qumran texts is deliberate differentiation, that they deliberately wanted to make their copy of Scripture be different than that preserved in the temple. But whether that's true or not, what we do have is the copies of these texts that show us how they made the letters, even if we're not sure why they always spelled certain words very differently. Gamma, gamma, gamma. Another, I call it gamma. Technically, the gamma is that letter from Greek, but we're looking at Gimel here. Gimel, and it makes the G sound, G. So we see two Gimels there in Isaiah chapter 2, one for the word Givaot, above the hills. And then we have the word Hagoyim, the nations, and the G for Goyim. That's this letter, Gamma, or Gimel here. Okay, now we're going to look at the Washington Pentateuch. We get in our time machine and we come forward in time about 1100 years probably. And we're in Tiberias, Israel. And we're looking here at a beautiful calligraphy. And this is from Genesis 15. Achar הדברים האלה היה דבר אדוני אל אברהם במחזה. That says, after these things, the word of the Lord was to Avram, במחזה, in a vision, lemor, saying, Al tira, Avram, do not be afraid, Avram, Anochi magen lach. Anochi magen lach. I am your shield. And the word we're looking at here for the Gimel is the word shield. It's mem, Gimel, and then that's a nun sofit, magen. And maybe you've heard of the Magen David, right? The shield of David. Well, or the Star of David, but they call it the Magen, which means shield. Magen, or in one of the traditional rabbinic blessings, Magen Avraham, shield of Abraham. Here we have Mem, Gimel, Nun, and we're just looking at this middle letter here. And what I'll do, I'm going to bring our little dry erase board below it. So I'm going to put the cursor below the Gimel here. And notice that this is a little fancier. This has 3 strokes, whereas the Dead Sea Scrolls Gimel was just that. Here we have that, but then we have a special little head put on it. And it's hard, of course, to replicate without the nice calligraphy pen. But that's a kind of a real crude way of representing this Gimel. It looks much more elegant when you do it nicely with the calligraphy pen. But here, we still can recognize that it's a Gimel, whether we put that little hat on top of it or not. I just like the simple Gimel like that. So we have our Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Aleph, Bet, Gimel. Well, there you have it. We've looked at 3 letters now, Aleph, Bet, and Gimel. And you want to practice them. You want to practice writing them, different sizes, different, write with a pen, with a pencil. If you're real creative, you could even do something where you have to fill it in. Like, you could make your Aleph like this. And then, color it in with a different color. That's not too bad. You can do it with a Bet and just make it like big block. Like that. So you're kind of replicating, having a bigger, thicker nib on the tip of a pen. You're kind of replicating that. And then finally for our Gimel, again, I'm just replicating the simple form. We just have that stroke like that and then one like this. And you can just fill that in. So you can have all sorts of fun like this. The point is you're reinforcing over and over and over again your recognition of the Hebrew letters. And you get those second nature. And once those are second nature, then you have the basic building blocks for starting to learn vocabulary and grammar. And if you follow through all these videos I'm doing and you learn the alphabet really, really well and some core vocab, you'd be really primed and ready to jump into beginning Hebrew at Torah Resource in the fall, Lord willing. Also, if any of you are interested in taking pictures of your work and you want to share it with me, you can send me an email, robvanhoff@gmail.com, and send me a picture of your work. I'd like to see your alepphs and your bets and your gimels as you go along. If you want to wait till you get a few more letters under your belt, maybe you've got some creative designs that you're doing with them with different colors or different bold letters, kind of like I was doing here, something like this. Make it fun. Learning is rightfully fun. If it's not fun, you want to pause and take a break and be nice to yourself. But remember, you want to take a little bit of time every day and concentrate on learning this new skill. And I promise you, it will pay off. You'll get it under your belt. You'll gain familiarity of it, and it will be enjoyable. And you'll just have new worlds open up to you. So thanks for sticking in there. And I hope that your notebook is getting full of Hebrew letters. Shalom.